Hi, and welcome to Polishing Your Style, featuring Emmy award-winning broadcaster and presentation media coach Jane Hanson, formerly of the NBC Today Show. We are so honored here to have her hosting this 20-minute session today about how to polish your speaking and presentation abilities, which I clearly need. Over 40 Females has weekly educational teleseminars that range from fashion to finance to building your businesses, strengthening your spirituality, and endless other subjects that you can benefit from. We all can. And if you want to find out more, please go to over40females.com and join us as a member, starting at only $17 a month. And if you join before February 14th, you will be one of our founding members of our Over 40 Female online community. So that's very exciting. We're building it all together, and this workshop today is open to the public, but most of them are only available if you have a membership on over40females.com. So welcome, Jane, and thank you so much for being a part of this today.
Well, Judy, thank you, and welcome, everybody. This is such a sweet spot for me, and I am really thrilled to be able to talk to all of you out there, because I do believe that there's so many subtle nuances that we as women can use to enhance our personal style. We're going to talk today about communication better, how to communicate better, and how to give better presentations, and even during one-on-one meetings, or even if you're a mom at home, you can use some of these skills as well, because they really are all designed to help you take everything you do up a notch and polish your style. Why is this so important, and why am I such a big advocate of helping women do this better? Because when we talk about women and leadership, and yes, we talk about women leadership and male leadership, we separate it because there are some very significant and important differences that are subtle, they're nuanced, but yet they're really, really important to take a look at, because it will help you get up the ladder a little bit faster, a little bit better, and maybe a little bit higher. Some of these nuances are things like, did you know that women are 25% more prone to be a perfectionist than men are? We're risk adverse because of that, because if we can't do it perfectly, then maybe we're not going to take a chance to do it all. And we all know that we need to take risks in leadership. And then we all want to talk about authenticity, but sometimes we get kind of lost in all of that because we lose our confidence. And so at the end of the day, these little things will help us, if we look at them and improve them, will help us become great leaders. There are a number of studies that have been done, and there was one that was all about executives all across the country. And what they came back with was, they said executive presence is 1/3 of what it takes to get to the next promotion. And for women, EP, executive presence, is the big roadblock. Now, what do we mean by executive presence? Well, it's about gravitas, confidence, competence, and even appearance. I hate to say it, but that is a big deal when you talk about men versus women, and appearance does count. I'm sorry to tell you that, but it really does. And we're going to get to a little bit about that later on as we talk more about this. So when we talk about executive presence and how to make it better, there have been a number of studies that have been done. And in fact, yesterday I was working with a woman who's an associate dean of a major business school in the U.S., and she was telling me that while women have made great strides in management roles and getting closer to the top, if you take a look at a test in a study that's been a survey that's been done over the past 50 years, it will tell you that 50 years ago, what did people look for in leaders? They looked for assertiveness, aggressiveness, quick decisions, all attributes that are tagged as being manly. And when you do the same survey, they did it 2 years ago, and what happened? Same thing came up: assertiveness, aggressiveness, quick decisions, all about what are considered to be male traits. What I have in this slide talks about purpose, however, and there was another case study that was done taking a look at Hillary Clinton. And the study came back and it said that before Hillary decided to use her purpose to achieve her purpose, her sense of leadership was a little bit afloat because she was worried about, how is she coming across? How does she look? Is she doing all of those sorts of things right? But once she was able to look at her purpose and focus on that, it changed everything, and her perspective was completely different. By the way, another little survey that's been done says that women underestimate our own value by about 30%, and men overestimate theirs by 30%. And so that should tell you a little something about the way they perceive themselves and how we perceive ourselves. And maybe if we just take a look at that, think about our purpose, we can make a huge difference inside our own head, which, yes, gets in the way. Now, let's get back to the basic of communication, because you can't polish your style if you don't understand all of the basics of communication. On this slide, you can see that we're talking about three things. Audience, who are you talking to? Your own personal style, which is different for everybody, and substance. And the big thing here is it's all managed by time. In my broadcast career, I can't tell you the number of times I would do a wonderful interview, or I'd do an interview with somebody. We'd get off the set and they'd look at me and say, I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. And I would report back to them saying, but that's not my problem. And so at the end of the day, you have to make sure that in the allotted time that you have, that you get said what you want to say. So time management becomes very important, and a lot of people don't think about that. So let's talk about the audience segment. Who are you talking to? If you look at this little cartoon on the left here, it's talking about confidence and success versus how you approach that audience. What do I do with my hands? Am I talking too fast like I am right now? Did I get a mental block, panic, embarrassment? Some of that will come because you don't know who your audience is. Think about this term, WIIFM. What's in it for me? And that's what your audience is thinking to themselves. What is in it for me? And so you always need to think about what is going to resonate with my audience. How are they going to feel about a subject? Your topic may be the same, but the audience could be male instead of female, or it could be young versus old, or it could be of a certain socioeconomic group versus a different one. So you really have to know who is your audience to make sure that you're always going to be resonating with them. And you also need to think about what's the big takeaway. That gets to the idea of your story. Stories are really, really important when we talk about how we relate to people and how they're going to understand what we've said. So see this first thing that's right up here on this slide, it says headline. In the news business, which I was in for over 30 years, we always had to have a headline to grab people, to get their interest, and to tell them what we were going to tell them. So that's what your headline, anytime you're putting together a presentation, think about what's your headline. I've worked with a lot of top executives, and many of them have said to me when we talk about what's your presentation going to be, what do you want the audience to take away, and they'll say, well, I want them to think about this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And they'll have 7 or 8 or 9 different messages. Now, we've got something called messaging math, which is, in the normal course of events, 9 times 1 is 9. But for messaging, it's 0, meaning if you have 9 different takeaways, 9 different messages, none of them are going to resonate or going to be heard. 3 times 3 in messaging math is 1, maybe 2, meaning 1 or 2 of your messages are going to get across. So you need to make sure that you've got good, solid messages, but you can't have a lot of them. You can only have a couple. Then we prove it with facts, analogies, and, of course, anecdotes and stories. And if you remember nothing else from this slide, remember this, the very bottom where it says facts are retained, stories are retold. And think about this in your own life. How many times have you heard somebody tell a story and that'll stick with you for a day or 2 or 5 or a couple of weeks? They might have given you a fact, but that goes in one ear and out the other. But that story, you will probably tell somebody else about it. Stories, by the way, you have to set the story up. You have to set out the problem, and then you talk about the solution, and you need to do it quickly. When you tell stories, they can't be long and lengthy. Instead, they have to be quick and to the point, because that's the attention that we want to get people to listen to. The average attention span in the United States right now is 9 seconds, which means that you only have a certain period of time where you're going to grab people's attention, and then they're going to start thinking about something else. So make your stories quick, short, to the point, and interesting. This is, if you look at this slide here where it talks about what's the news in it. Do you have any tips for people? Entertaining, because in this world of social media, entertaining is a really big deal. Jargon free, and this is true for any part of your presentations ever. You cannot use jargon. They may be words that within your corporation or within your office or within your industry, they're very common and everybody understands them. But if you're talking to people that are outside that scope, they're not going to know what you're talking about. If they don't know what you're talking about, they are going to tune out, and then you've lost them. Also, great quotes, because if you have a great quote, people are going to repeat it. Maybe it'll be on Twitter, maybe it'll be on Facebook. And wouldn't that be great if something you said, actually a quote, is used, and that will make you be known, far more effective, and considered to be an expert in your field. Also, the idea at the bottom, sell. And by that, what I mean is whatever your top message is, make sure that you sell it and you sell it well and get it in there right off the top. So now let's get to that idea of what is style? Well, there's three parts to it. One is our voice. How are we using that beautiful lyrical instrument of ours? Then visually, how are we using our bodies? And then verbally, what are the words or the content that we choose to use? And all of this gets to the idea of body language. I love this particular drawing that I put in the middle here, where we see the ape way at the left-hand side, and then you see the person on his computer where it says evolution, or is it? I found that pretty amusing. But if you think about body language, we have been walking the earth for a few million years. There's kind of a dispute over actually when man first walked on two legs. But we've only had a spoken language for about 160,000 years. So for a very long time, we communicated through our bodies. It would be some sort of emotion. Whatever it was, it's innate. And if you don't believe it is, all you need to do is think about this. When somebody walks into a room, whatever they're doing will make you instantly form a judgment. And that's what body language does to it. You can look at body language in a number of different ways, but the real importance of body language is that we use it and we keep it in sync, because if our words and our body aren't saying the same thing, nobody's going to believe us. That leads us to the subject of credibility. Now, if we had a giant pot of 100%, you're wondering how much of that is really about what my content is, and how much is the rest of it about how I say it and what my body language is saying. Look at this. 93% has nothing to do with the content. Now, if you don't have anything to say, it doesn't matter how you say it. But this is a really significant point, because it shows you just how crucial it is to have your body language intact and in sync. So some of the other parts about body language are our gestures, our facial expressions, and our posture. Look at this old poster. If you're good and you have good posture, you're a good person. If you have poor posture, you are evil. So that was how innate it was. This poster is quite old, but if you think about this, this is really telling you about how people perceived us so many years ago. And then, of course, there's eye contact. Now, when we're talking about eye contact, eyes are considered to be the gateway to the soul. So what does that mean in terms of how should we have eye contact with people? If you're doing a one-on-one meeting, then you want to have pretty direct eye contact with the person you're talking to. If you want to do an interview for the media, which of course I've done a lot of over the years, you want to have good eye contact with whoever is interviewing you. I don't mean staring, because that can turn people off, but what I do mean is that you're going to look them straight in the eye for the most part. Glance away at times, but you still have to have great eye contact, or else you lose credibility and you are not believed. When you're speaking to a larger group, what I want you to think about is dividing the room into threes. 3 pieces of pie, 3 pieces of pizza. And you will make moves to make sure you're looking at each side of that room, and do it in phrases. That's the best way to do it, because you're not going to take your eyes and go from one to another to another. That would be distracting, and frankly, people would think, ooh, this person's a little strange, aren't they? So what you would do is, just as an example, let's say we're talking about communication. So I would look at 1/3 of the audience, and I would say, today we're going to talk about communication styles and what really works. Pause. Move my eye contact, end of that phrase, to the middle audience, and I will say, communication consists of 3 things: audience, style, and substance. And then perhaps I would move to the other part of the audience and say something. And today we're going to focus on body language, which I think happens to be one of the biggest parts of our own personal style. So think about 3 pizza pies or 3 pieces of pizza in the room, and that's how you will use your eye contact. Trust me, eye contact, really crucial. Now, what do you do if you're not so comfortable with a lot of this stuff and you want to think about ways in which you can get yourself up and get yourself ready to communicate? Well, this is a big thing these days. It's called posing, high power posing and low power posing. And again, a number of different studies have been done about this concept, but what it really amounts to is to put your body in a position where you're being free and open, and you're posing in that way. Look at this picture over here of Joe Biden and Barack Obama, and you can see the president clearly is in command, just judging by the way he's posing. So this is a great way to get yourself up before any kind of a presentation. It will make you feel better, more comfortable, and you'll be eager to do it by just throwing your arms up in the air. Nobody has to see you. Do it privately. A lot of people ask me about questions. What do I do during a presentation when they ask me questions and I'm not quite ready for them? One of the things I always say to do is prepare for the worst question they can ask you. Then if they don't ask it, you are fine, but you're ready to go if they do, and it won't derail you from what you're doing. Answer legitimate ones and then bridge back to your message, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. If you get multiple questions at once, pick the one you want to answer. That's the way to do it because that's the one you like. If the others are that important, the person will come back to it at that time. So now let's talk about that bridging back to a message. We call it ATM, which is acknowledge and answer what you can, make a transition, and then get back to your message. So let's say that you're there to talk about the ocean being blue, and somebody says to you, the ocean looks green, and you could say, well, that may be what the ocean looks like today, that green, but most of the time when you're talking about the ocean, you're going to see that it's blue. Now you're getting back to your message. That's a very simple way of positioning it, but think about how can I answer a question, and then how can I get back to what I really, really want to talk about? Because if you don't do that, then you're going to get off track, you're going to lose time, and you may not ever be able to get back to your original message. So this bridging back is a very crucial technique to use whenever you're answering questions in front of people or even during the interviewing process. So think about that, because you want to be sure that your message, your headline, what you really have to say is there. We talked at the very beginning a little bit about appearance, and yes, appearance does matter. It's another big difference between men and women. Most of the time you will see men wearing suits in probably navy blue, black, gray, brown, something like that. The only thing they change up is maybe their tie or no tie, different colored shirts, etc. But they don't have a lot of options most of the time with what they wear. We, on the other hand, do. Couple of key things. A, the sentence right here. Anything that distracts, detracts, and by that I mean a way too trendy of an outfit, or perhaps jewelry that is inappropriate or may have a jangle to it or a jingle when you move. We don't want that to happen because, again, it distracts. Women, I think, are very lucky because we can wear all kinds of beautiful colors. Be bold. Wear pretty colors. I always recommend that you don't wear black or brown or those more somber colors because it makes your message somber and it's harder to get the energy up. If you wear a vibrant color, you have more energy, and we always want to have a lot of energy. You get fearful, few other ideas. Remember that they're looking for information, not necessarily performance. If you get nervous, and women tend to do this, and sometimes what happens is we start to speed up, and then we speed up, and we talk faster and faster and faster and faster. We sound like a helium balloon, and then nobody can understand a single word we're saying. So avoid that tendency when you get nervous. Slow down. Remember that you love what you do, and then a little breathing technique. Breathe in for 3. Hold it for 3, breathe out for 3, repeat it 3 times. I do this every single time before I give a speech or before I give a major presentation or before I MC something. It really helps me. And it gets your diaphragm going. When our diaphragm is going, we talk better. Again, another little technique to make your voice sound better. And the ultimate gesture. It's universal, rarely misunderstood, gives people a sense of euphoria, and that is the smile. And trust me, I'm smiling right now, and I hope you can hear it through the computer, through the telephone, because smiles warm you up. They're more engaging. Obviously, you only use it when appropriate, but don't forget to smile, because smiles always work. And so that is it for me today. There's so much more I could touch on, but that was a little crash course for you about communications. Obviously, I want to tell you about going to over40females.com, over40females.com. Again, you will be able to see this presentation and many more. Judy Goss has done a wonderful job of creating this website, creating this organization, so we all can learn. Thank you so much for your time today, and happy communicating. I hope I've given you a few great tips. I'm Jane Hanson. Bye, everybody.